Hello, just want to go over some fine points of selecting hair for you. And we have this lovely model who was a dancer who came into my studio a few years ago, and she has great hair for showing this final selection technique. We've talked about the quick selection tool, and this is just taking it that one step further. So we can either start with the quick selection tool right on the layer and then go into select and mask, or we can go directly into select and mask. I'm just going to run this over quickly over my subject, and what I don't really want is to get all this blank space in here, the background stuff. So I'm going to option click that so that I just have her where she's really solid, where her hair is solid, where her body is solid. Okay, there. Now I'm going to go into select and mask, and this is what I want to show you. You have your quick selection tool up here. If I hadn't done it inside of Photoshop, I can still come in here and add some to it, and I'm doing that right here. Looks like I've got her body just fine. The next one down is your edge detection brush, or your fine edge brush, which comes over here to your edge detection brush right here. We want to click on the smart radius. We can change the radius here if you find it gives you better results. If you've got a furry cat, for instance, you may want to be up in the high. You see how that brought back some of this hair right here just by doing that. You can try that to see how it works, or you can leave it down a little bit lower and do it by painting. Just make sure you have smart radius checked. When you come over here and you're in the edge detection brush, just go over the edges. It takes a minute for it to catch up, my computer. There we go. And I'm going to go up here and catch these little guys. And you see how it's bringing back in those hairs? And if I want to check to see what I've done to make sure I haven't picked up too much of the background, go up to the top menu and you've got your viewing options here. So I can view this on white, I can view it on black, looks pretty good actually. I can view it on layers if I have if I had any other layers there. I can view it as marching ants, which don't give us any information. I can view it as an overlay, and I see right here I've got stuff that didn't show up otherwise down here. So I want to come in here again with the edge detection brush. I just hit the escape key to get that out of my way. And you can see going over this little section here brings the background off of the hair, or gets the background out of the hair, I should say. Okay, right there. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to come down to the bottom here and to the output settings and tell it to output new layer with layer mask. That allows me some editability, some ability to change this much more easily than many of the other output options. I'm going to tell it to remember settings so that I don't have to put in all those settings again. I'm going to click OK, and there it is. It's made the original layer invisible by turning off the eyeball, and it's given me another layer. So I'm going to put a layer in behind it. I'm going to check it. We did check it on a bunch of things, but I'm going to check it on the color of her shirt, and it looks pretty good there. A little bit of stuff that's fallen off over here. I'm going to check it on, let's see, the color of her skin, color of her teeth. You can check it on a whole bunch of different colors. Check it in here on the background color. And when I start putting it on a really dark color, you see because of the fact that it was shot on a light background, the edges of her hair seem a little bit too bright. You have a number of options when the edges seem too bright, or when you've got a little bit different cast from your original background and going into a different tone of background, different density of background. Because they seem too bright, why not come in here and use the burn and dodge tool and burn in the edges of her hair a bit and see if that helps. Okay, because we have the layer mask, we can't really go outside the edges. That's kind of nice. so that's one option, and that looks pretty good. That's a pretty nice option for you. I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to show you another option. If the color is different, for instance, if I photographed her in front of a green tree and I had green in front, green around the edges of her hair, which will happen, I could come in here to that layer. I'm going to throw this layer mask in the trash and apply it so that it's just her on the layer, because this will happen sometimes. It doesn't matter which way you do this. You could do it with a layer mask, but I just want to demonstrate a different way. If I lock the layers, lock that layer, it means I can't paint on any transparent pixels, so I can only paint where there's already stuff on the layer. So if I come in here with the brush tool and sample the color of her hair and go to color, that's going to change the hue of the hair. It's not going to change the brightness and darkness of her hair. It'll just change the hue. So if her hair were shaded green, for instance, like here from a tree, I could come in here and sample the color of her hair and change it back to the right color, change it to the color it's supposed to be. In this case, we want to come in and darken the hair. So I could come in here and sample the hair color up here and use the paintbrush in normal blend mode rather than color and just paint in the edges of the hair like that. Okay, so it basically lets you paint only where there are already pixels, so I can't go outside the lines like a coloring book kind of thing, and I can just paint where there's already stuff happening. Oops, I want a darker color over here, and come in and just touch those up. You can see it can get too dark too, but you can kind of play around with that. Okay, I'm going to go back one more time to where the layer mask is, and let's option click on the layer mask. And one of the things you can do if you've got little bits of background coming through, like we saw in the select and mask dialog box, is to come in here and use a slightly darker than middle gray brush and use soft light blend mode, and you see how it's darkening up the black in there, increasing the contrast. If we wanted to if we had stuff that was in here that we wanted to make absolutely white, choose something that's a little bit brighter than middle gray, and it's going to make the whites a bit whiter. You can see it brings out a little bit of those edges a little bit better. It's very subtle, but in some cases it won't be subtle at all. Okay? And that is how you would edit the mask. You can, of course, always go in here with the brush tool in normal blend mode in black or white and paint in or out anything that you see, like down here. Looks like I'm missing a bit of her shoulder. So if I paint with white here, I'd want it to be smaller so it doesn't fade, give me a soft edge there. Okay, so those are a few tips on kind of option click here, alt click there, a few tips on cleaning stuff up in your edges. The other thing you can do here is I'm going to, again, put that in the trash, apply it, and if you've got a rough or horrible edge that you don't want, remember if you have a soft edge eraser, big fluffy soft edge eraser, for instance, with the dog exercise that I gave you, you can come in here and just nick the edges of that selection, and sometimes that will soften things down so that it makes it look much more realistic, much less like it's a rough edge selection. Okay. The other last thing you can do, clone tool, come in with your clone tool in here, make a new layer, work on a new layer, make sure that with your clone tool you have all layers sampled, and because we're on a blank layer, I can come in here with my clone tool, go to one of these lovely brushes that is a nice bristle brush, and sample the hair here and just copy like there and add in a little bit. Okay, so I can actually come in and paint in hair that might be missing, or if I have little divots like here. And remember, you can use the same brush tips with the mixer brush to kind of drag hair out. It makes your hair, your brush and your pixels on your canvas act as if they were wet. Oops, I don't like that one. And you can even put that behind if you want. You can play with it and see what works better, and that could be a good way to handle it as well. Okay, just a few tips there on how you might handle really tough selections like hair, flyaway hair, fur, feathers, same thing. Feathers are basically hair of birds. Okay, have a great time trying this.